Okay, so we're finally on the dashboard, and on this tutorial, we will be covering the top bit of the dashboard. And that includes setting up the client name over here, and then we're going to set up the project name, and then depending if the client happens to be part of multiple projects, then we will switch this project, this button here should come into view. And if not, then we need to hide that away. And then we're going to move on to setting up the switch project modal itself. We're going to learn how to render out the list of the projects that the client is part of, understand how the CSS works as well, because we have a few bit of custom code involved in this. So I'm going to walk you through that real quick in a bit. And yeah, that's that for this. And then we're going to set up the project start date. And then we're going to learn how to render out the collaborators for this project, and which is actually further broken down to collaborators with images, and then rendering the list for collaborators without images. And then we're also going to attach the tooltip that you see right now as we hover over each and every collaborator, printing out their name inside that tooltip. I don't remember if I mentioned this, but the tooltip is a JavaScript library called Tippy. And I'm going to be attaching that on the project, on the description. So you can, you can look into that if you want to. And then we're going to end the video with tying the invite a collaborator feature into our dashboard. So yeah, really excited to show you this now. Okay, so let's jump over onto the Webflow side of things. Now, build-wise, everything is exactly the way you would expect it. Of course, the elements that we're going to be setting up on Wized already has the Wized element set to this. Yeah, I'm not going to walk through this because this is quite self-explanatory, but the one thing that I will point out, however, while we're here, now all right, is it this one? Yeah, so switch project pop-up wrapper. So if I just switch this on real quick, you'll notice that there is a combo class to this. So if I click in here, so yeah, there is a combo class attached to this. So make sure that you style this the way you want it to for your own project. I just wanted to point this out real quick. So I'm going to hide that. Okay, now with that out of the way, let me show you the page settings real quick, because we need to go through, we have quite a bit to unwrap on the code side of things. All right, so inside the head tag, of course, I've included the no index, no follow over here. And then we have our CSS file for the Tippy library that I mentioned. So we need to include that. And then if I scroll down, I have a separate style CSS applied to our project switcher. The reason why I had to explicitly put this into the CSS here is because of the custom code that we applied, I'm not sure why, but it doesn't allow native Webflow interactions to come through. It just doesn't pull through for some reason, which is why I have to explicitly mention these CSS details over here. So like, it doesn't show you the combo class, the styling for the combo class when the combo class of is active has been added. And when you're hovering over the other items, the hover state doesn't exactly work. So again, as a workaround, if you just add the CSS over here, it starts working. So that's essentially what that is. Okay, so scrolling down, we have additional styling for the tooltip, of course, setting the background color and then setting the text color. And then scrolling down, we have, so we're not going to be covering any of these for now, but basically these are for our the Kanban tasks and then the documents. So we're going to be addressing all these later on. These are, yeah, we're going to be focusing on these later on. And scrolling down, we have our JavaScript code, but we're going to switch things up a little bit, and instead of putting in our custom JavaScript, which we're using quite a lot actually for the dashboard, instead of putting this in here, we're going to load up, we're going to insert the JavaScript code in code sandbox. So yeah, there we go. So we have our code sandbox, and in here we have our JavaScript code, and then we also have our JavaScript code for the tooltip as well. Now I've provided a Notion link, so it should give you access to this page over here. So at the moment, and yeah, I'll have the entire code on this page, but as I'm creating this tutorial, you'll notice that these are all blank at the moment. But yeah, you just need to copy this and then create your own code sandbox account and put this into your own project. So yeah, that's that for this. Also, in case if you're wondering why we're doing it through this way, is because we're going to be going through several rounds of iterations. As we start building through this, the code is going to keep getting bigger and bigger for a lot of reasons, and we're going to go through all that. But yeah, which is why we're constantly going to be adjusting the code, so it's a lot easier when the JavaScript code is sitting inside of Code Sandbox. You can just modify this code, publish this, and the changes would immediately reflect on your Webflow site without you having to constantly publish your Webflow project. For those of you who are not familiar with Code Sandbox, it's basically an online code editor. And you can use Code Sandbox. It's absolutely free as well. You can put in your JavaScript code, and then you can load that JavaScript file straight into your Webflow site. So that's essentially what we're doing here. So over here, you'll notice that the first script source is loading up the file for our dashboard JavaScript. And then the second one is loading up the next two is basically for our Tippy library, and the last one is for our tooltip content. So let me walk you through the dashboard JavaScript real quick and explain what's happening. So I'm on the dashboard JavaScript page here, and so yeah, we have so basically we're interacting with Wized API, and basically we're waiting for the page to load up, and as soon as the page is loaded up, we grab the cookie that's called project record ID from Wized, and then we use that cookie value to set up the parameter. That's essentially what this part of the code is doing. The reason why we set it up on the parameter is then we grab the parameter and look at, so actually let me just switch over here. Yeah, notice this parameter here. So that's essentially what this custom code is doing. It grabs the record ID and then sets it as a URL parameter. And then these information on the dashboard is loaded up based on the project record ID that is on the URL parameter. So basically we use that to look it up on Airtable and then get all the information that we need to know. So that's what this code is doing. Now, the reason why I'm calling this dashboard is because this code is going to get a lot bigger because it's going to have a lot of complex functionality. So for context, let me show you what this looks like. So basically, this is what the code is going to look like in its entirety. So you have the entire code, and right here covering a lot of other functionalities, and we're going to be working our way through this as well. And this is not just it. We have other libraries as well. We have we're going to be covering the Kanban cards, and then we're going to have our date picker functionality, and then we have the tooltip content. So yeah, this project is for my actual site, and of course this code sandbox is for the clonable that we're working on right now. Okay, so the dashboard is covered. Let's quickly cover the tooltip content as well. And so basically, let me walk you through what's happening on the code. So we have a request called the load current project. So once that is executed, we wait for the data. And then based on that data, we load up the collaborator images, and then we load up the collaborator without images. So essentially what's happening is that this request load current project returns the names of the collaborators with images and collaborators without the images. and then we load up the data Tippy content, which we are going to go through more in details as we start setting up the Wized. And yeah, making sure that the name is correctly appended to the correct elements. So we make sure that then the correct name is appended to the collaborator with images, and the correct name is appended to the collaborator without an image, profile image. So yeah, that's that for the tooltip. I'm also going to quickly show you how you can create a new code sandbox project in case if you haven't done that before. Assuming you go into CodeBox and, okay, why is it not? Okay, so once you're inside of Code Sandbox, you want to click on New Sandbox. Well, assuming that you have created your account and you're finally in your dashboard. So you want to click on New Sandbox and then click on Static, which will create your project. And then I will create my JavaScript file here. So let's say dashboard, and then make sure to include JS at the end. Yeah, and then what you want to do is when you start putting in your code into this file, you want to link your website to this JavaScript file. So what you want to do is copy this code, this address here, and then basically link this over here, and then include dashboard JavaScript. There you go. That's how you link your JavaScript file into your Webflow site. So obviously you got to make sure that the URL is correct, and then / your JavaScript file name. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that now. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the page settings side of things, and we are good to go on Wized. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the creating all the data in requests, and then create our data out requests, and then signing off on creating the actions. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. So okay, so what do we need to do? We need to first create a folder, and we're going to call it dashboard. So we're going to have all our data in requests in here. So our first data in request is going to be load clients. Now, we first need to load up all the clients that we have. So if you remember correctly, on the login page, when the client logs in, we grab the login email and we store that in a cookie. So we're going to use that as an identifier to look up this client on our Airtable dashboard. Once we find this client, we're going to then try to find out what project this client is linked to, and then we're going to use that project to populate the dashboard. So in a nutshell, that's essentially what we are doing. So okay, so for this one, we are going to link this to Airtable. Database method is get item list. Then we have our base as client portal. Table would be clients. Want to attach this to our master view. Sorting limit trigger. There isn't much happening here. All right, so that's that. Now, obviously we need to create a client record ID and a project record ID. So what we need to do is, before I wrap up on this data in request, we need to head over here real quick and create new cookies. So this cookie is going to be called client record ID. We're going to give it a lifetime of a week. Or it could be more. That's completely up to you. It's totally your choice. And then we're going to create a project record ID. Oh, shoot, spelled it wrong. Okay, so we have client record ID and project record ID. And what our data in is going to do after the request is successful, it will set a cookie of client record ID. Now, the formula for this is a little different. So I already have that formula on my notes. Okay, so instead of 28D, this is going to, I'm going to have to change this to 7 because, oh wait, no, it's not 7. Ah, shoot, I just completely messed this up. Okay, so it's supposed to be 9 because that's the, yeah, that's the data in right there, 9. Okay, so let me explain what's happening. So what we're doing is we're looking up the client email inside of Airtable and trying to match trying to understand if it matches the login email. If it does, we want to grab the record ID. So let me quickly take you over to Airtable here, and if you remember correctly, we have this email here, which is the client email. So we are grabbing this client, we check if any of the login email matches the client email. And if it does, then grab all the details of that client. All right, so that's what we're doing, and we're going to set a condition, of course, is it only should put this in when this is successful. All right, and then after that, we're going to set another cookie, which is going to be conditional as well. And we're going to set the project record ID. Ah, shoot, basically I need to copy the formula again from my notes. Completely forgot about that. Okay, so instead of 28, it needs to be R9D, client email, login, and then the project record ID. Okay, so I know this doesn't make a lot of sense, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the request, wait for it to populate. Okay, all right, so we've gotten a response. Now, based on this response, let's see what this looks like. All right, there we go. Okay, so it has found a match. So for the client record ID, we have found our record ID, so which is DCP. So if I take you to the client dashboard, you'll see that this is the one right here. Onnoy Gupta, that's me, and that's my client record ID. Now, if I move over to, now for this, you'll notice that this client has 2 projects, Wellness and Dreamland. So, shoot, what's happening? Okay, well, that was weird. Okay, so we have 2 projects here, Wellness and Dreamland. So if I take you to the next formula, which is getting the project record ID, you'll notice that I've explicitly mentioned that it has to be the first value. So the first record ID in the array should be the one that we're setting the project record ID on, which is N3J. And my reasoning behind this is because since this is the first project, so we're just going to pretend that this is going to be the default for everything. So every time you load into your dashboard after a login, you'll notice the content for Wellness, Wave Design and Development project details on your dashboard. So yeah, that's the logic behind that. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, now we need to create another data in request, and we're going to call this load logged in user details. So basically now we want this data in request to grab everything that there is that we need to know about this specific client that just logged in. So let's set that up. Get item base client portal table is clients record ID is coming from our cookie. It hasn't set that up. Okay, let me just run this real quick again. Okay, let's just set this in anyway right now. Okay, yeah, and that's that for the load logged in user details. Then we're going to switch back to load clients, and we will make sure that we perform this request, set a perform request of load logged in user details, and this is going to be conditional, and we're going to reload this page. Okay, so I just realized I forgot to set the trigger to this. So attribute present, and we're going to do this with dashboard wrapper. So just to clarify, the dashboard wrapper is this main div here that wraps the entire dashboard. So this is our dashboard wrapper, and if I, yeah, we have the Wized element of dashboard wrapper. So just to recap, what we're doing is we're going to trigger load clients when the attribute is present of dashboard wrapper. Okay, so let's do that. Okay. Now let's check if this has worked. Okay, it has worked. Perfect. So let's check our page data. Okay, so we can see that our client record ID is being pulled in and our client project record ID is also being pulled in. That is perfect. Okay. Okay, so now that we have already created the load clients, we get all the clients that we currently have on Airtable, and then the next one grabs the specific client that has logged in and grab their details for the project. No, just the client details. So now what we want to do is create another request, and we're going to call this load project. Let me just quickly check my notes. Okay, so not load project, so it's called load current project. So essentially what it does is we are going to grab all the details for the project now from the projects table. So we're going to have the entire thing load up on Wized. So let's jump over onto Wized and start setting this up. So get item, and base is client portal, table is okay, table will be clients. Wait, no, it's projects. So record ID. Now, if you remember correctly, so on the page data, we have our project record ID in the cookie, and we have our custom code that grabs this cookie and then sets the URL parameter. So what we need to do is we need to create a parameter and call it project record ID. Ooh, ID. So now we have created a project record ID. And based on this parameter, we're going to grab our details from Airtable. So let's do that. So the record ID for this is going to be coming from this parameter here. Okay, now we're just going to close this real quick and head over to page data and reload the page to see if the custom code works. There we go. It's loading in the project record ID. And like I mentioned, it pulls in the first record that it finds in the array. So, which in this case would be, if I go to clients, so for my account here, we have wellness, wave design, and development. So that's the first project. So if I go into project, yeah. So wellness, wave design, this is the record that it's pulling in, 93J. Oh, yeah, 93J. All right, perfect. Okay, and that is that. So what we're going to do is we're going to close this, and so what we are going to create an after request for the load logged in user details. So basically, we're going to perform a request of loading up the current project only when it's successful. So, God, that's a long list. Okay. All right, there we go. So let's run this. Let's see if this has, okay. All right, this looks good as well. Perfect. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to create, oh, before I do that, let me actually put this into our folders. All right, there you go. We got this in our folder now. We're going to create our data out request, which is send collaborator invite. Okay, so we need to create a dashboard folder. Okay, so we want to send our details for collaborator invite. So basically what's happening is when someone clicks on submit, we're going to run this request here, send collaborator invite. So essentially that's what this data out request is for. So email, we're going to grab that from our input. So let's scroll down and input. See if I can find it in this long list. Ah, there we go. Collaborator invite email. And then we have clients, which is a multiple record link, and project, and then invitation status. But before I start interacting with this, let me show you what we have in collaborator invite. So we have email, and then we have a link record of clients, and then link record of project, and then invitation status. So let's say that Onnoy here wants to invite their team member, so we want the team member's email here, and then we want to know who exactly it is that made the request of inviting this teammate, so that this over here should have my name over, and which project is this related to. So that's what we're doing here. And then if you look at the invitation status here, it's pending, sent, and accepted. So by default, it should always be pending. And then, of course, you can take advantage of Airtable's automation to set up that in the event of you receiving a invite from a collaborator invite request from a client, then you need to receive an email, and then you can send the collaborator invite to the team member and notify your client that, hey, the invitation has been sent off, and once they accept that request, I will let you know. So again, that entire thing, it can either be automated or you can manually do that, but I will leave that to you. Okay, so with that being said, let's jump over onto Wiz. Okay, so clients, we need to grab this from, okay, where are we grabbing this from? That would need to be from our client record ID. Yep, so we already have that cookie, so we're grabbing that value from the cookie, and then the project record ID, we can either grab that from the cookie or the parameter. So choice is yours. I'm going to choose the cookie. The invitation status, of course, this is case sensitive, so we need to type this exactly the way we have it on Airtable. Okay, so we don't have a trigger for this. Because we're going to set up the trigger from our actions, and there is no after request. So yeah, our data out request is done. And now we can finally jump into our actions and start smashing each and everything out here. So we're going to create a folder real quick of dashboard. Okay, so first on the list is we want to set the client name. So let's go back to WEBFLOW, figure out what this is called, the client name. Why did I call it? Oh, right, it's dashboard client name. Okay. Yeah, I'm very forgetful. Okay, so we're going to we're just going to call it set client name text. apply to the client name, and then configuration, set text, plain text. So we have load current project, and from here, oh wait, no, not load current project, load logged in user. Yep, we want to grab the first name. There we go. We've set that up, so let's refresh that. Perfect, so that's out of the way now. Okay, so what's next on the list? Okay, we want to set the project name. So let's work on that. Oh, actually, yeah, we're just going to call it set project name text. So project name is going to be from load current project. All right, so where is the name? Wow, we got a lot of files here. Agenda status. There we go. Project name. Perfect. Close that. Reload this page. Awesome. Okay, now what we want to do is set the visibility for switch project here. So let's do that. The project switcher. Set visibility and visible if. I need to go into, all right, so if we go into projects, we have a separate field for this. Collaborator project brief, file status. Either that or we have it here. There we go. Switch project enable option. Okay, so true. All right. So that means it needs to come in from the load logged in user details. And we got to make sure we select the right element here. Okay, so is true. Single quote. Yep, there we go. So we only want this to be visible when switch project enable option is true. And let's, which in this case is true because this client is part of two projects. Awesome. Now, next on the list, we want to render our projects here. So we're going to call this load projects for switch modal. Okay, so switch project option wrapper, render list. Okay, so it has to come from here. All right, so what the field that we're looking for is going to be projects. There we go, projects, found it. So it returns the arrays of an array of all the records. Perfect, and we want to select that's weird. Normally it shows VI. Okay, that's very weird. Okay, so I think I found the fix for the v index. So if I head over to actions here and head over to load projects for switch modal. So yeah, I've changed this to v index. So yeah, which is so strange because generally when you create a new project in Wiz, the variable iterator is in your project by default, but it wasn't there this time. So what I did was I just had to create my own. So yeah, you just need to create your own variable, call it index, and then have the initial value set to 0. So yeah, once that has been applied, let's go into our actions and this should work. Yeah, so you have the v index. So notice that it's now pulling in the first project name. So if I click on switch project, both our project names are being pulled in, which is great. And yeah, that's perfect. Now, what we have next on the list is making sure that our class name of isActive combo class is added to the appropriate project. So since we are currently on Wellness Wave Design and Development, we want the first one to be to have their combo class added to this. So let's do that. Set class. Wait, no, we're gonna call it set active class to switch project, apply to switch project option wrapper, and then we want to click on set class, add class, and then the class name. Okay, so for the class name, we need to make sure that the load current project So we want to grab the record ID of the current project. Okay, so it turns out I was looking at the wrong thing. We're supposed to target the request with load logged in user, and then we're supposed to be looking for projects. So let's look for the field projects. Perfect. So let's put in v index here. So what essentially we're trying to do is the project needs to match the parameter. So which is, project parameter. So it's basically an if statement. So if it matches, then we're going to add the class of isActive, and if not, then just leave it as it is. Okay. All right, so we grab the projects and then try to match it up with the project record ID from the parameter. And if there's a match, place the isActive class to that link block. And if not, just leave it as is. All right, so let's reload that. It should work. Okay, so we have wellness, so wellness needs to be selected. There we go. So awesome. Okay, so now we're going to set the actual functionality of the switching. So when we click on Dreamland, it should of course switch over to Dreamland. So for that, what we're gonna do is set project ID for switch. So essentially what's happening is that we need to apply switch project option wrapper. All right, so we need to set an HTML attribute. And the key is going to be ref. So we're going to insert a link. And in this link, we're going to include the link with the parameter. So let me show you what that looks like. So in the parameter, we're going to put in client portal /dashboard project record ID, and then we're going to insert the link. So link of the project. Okay, so we need to look for the projects field. There we go. Let's add our v index here as well. Okay, so let me explain what's happening. So essentially what we're doing is we're setting the URL for our link blocks. And we're including the project record ID as well, which the record ID will be grabbed from our field that is being pulled in from our request. And then we set that in. So essentially when you click on any of the link block, the page will reload and the URL, and it's going to pull in the data of that other project. So let's see that in action. So I'm going to reload the page, and on reload you'll notice that it loads in the Wellness Wave Design and Development project details. But now we want Dreamland, so we're going to click on that. It reloads the page. And there we go, it's working. So now we have Dreamland. And if you look at the page data, so you will notice that the project parameter project record ID is that of Dreamland Adventure. So let's confirm that on Airtable as well. There we go, ending with BFFS. So let's check that out here as well. Yep, BFFS, perfect. Now, next on the list, we are going to set the project start date. Set project start date and apply that to the project start date. I'm copying this from my notes, so which is why I'm not referring to WEBFLOW here. All right, so we want to stick this plain text. Okay, so where can we get this? So load current project, we should have a field that says, actually, let me just check if there, or do we have it from our client table? Nope, we don't have any date, so it's on the projects. Okay, so yes, start date pretty, it's in the projects table. Load current project. It goes by the field start date pretty. There we go, start date pretty. Okay, so that has been assigned in. All right, let's reload the page. Perfect. Okay, now let's move on to the next thing on the list. Okay, so now we are going to render the collaborators with images. So let's do that. We're going to call this load collaborators with image. Okay, and then we're going to apply that to our element called collaborator with image. So we're going to need to render that list first before we can set the image. Actually, we should be able to set the image on the same element. Render list. Okay, so we're looking for the field name called profile image true. Perfect. And the index, let's reload this. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we got 5 collaborators with images. Perfect. I wonder if we can also set the HTML attribute here. Okay, I chose the wrong one. It's meant to be this one. There we go. Put in the v index here. So src, and then we might have to add another one here. src set. Copy that and paste it in here, and let's reload that, see if that works. Perfect. It's working. Amazing. Now moving on to the next item on the list, we have load collaborator without image. So apply to collaborator, no images, and then we're going to render that list. So first name, we're looking for the field called first name initials. Actually, rather than looking for it, I think I can just type it out. I just hope this works. First name initial. Hey, we got it. Perfect, it's working. So it's going to be somewhere in this list. All right, so v index, let's reload the page. Amazing. All right, now we need to set the initial properly. So we're going to create another action and call it load collaborator first initial. Call it client initial. And we're going to use set text, plain text. Okay, so it's going to be in the same data request. So we're going to just put this in first name initial, and then put an AV index here as well. There we go. Reload that. Perfect. Now we move on to the tooltip on the list to make sure that the tooltip is working. Okay, so we need to first set tooltip attribute to collab with images. Okay, so we need to set the attribute for the collaborator with images, and then we're going to have to repeat that for the ones without images. So let's select collaborator with image, and then what we're going to do is we are going to set an HTML attribute, and we're going to call this attribute as data Tippy content. And so data Tippy content, and we are going to grab client names with image. That's the file that we're looking for. The field name that we're looking for. Let me see if I can actually find it from here. Client names with image. Perfect. Okay, so we need to put the iterator here as well. Let's load that up. There we go, it works. So basically what's going on here is that we set the HTML attribute of data Tippy content. You don't necessarily need to call it data Tippy content. It can be called something else as well. But the reason why we're doing that this way is because if you remember correctly, and on the custom code for the tooltip Tippy content, we have, so our code is waiting for this request, the load current project, to be executed. Once that's executed, it then selects the collaborator with images and the collaborators without the images, and then it grabs the data Tippy content value from those two elements and then sets the text inside the tooltip accordingly. So that's essentially what is happening here. So we are going to do the same thing for our tooltip without content. So collaborator, no image. So we're going to do the same thing for that. So tooltip without. All right, so that's that. And oh, right, I need to change this. So this is going to be without, and let's reload that. Perfect, it's working. That's beautiful. All right, now the final thing is to wrap up on the collaborator. Okay, so we need to set the we need to tie this in with our data out request, and then once it's gone through, we just need to, of course, display the success and the error banner. So let's do that. I'm going to close this, and first one we are going to have is trigger collaborator invite. And basically, we're going to use the X-ray request collab invite on click. We're going to perform a request, send collaborator invite. There we go. That's done. And then we're going to create another action called set collaborator invite success. Apply to collab invite success, and we're going to set its visibility only visible if invite. So has requested is true and status code is 200. So let's reload that real quick. Perfect. And now we are going to create another one for the error. Okay, so let's see if I can produce a error code here. Okay, so the error code doesn't work. All right. Okay, so what we can do is we're gonna have has requested as true, and status code is not 200. So let's reload that again. Okay, so that does not work. Oh wait. No, I set that to, didn't select the right element. Collab invite error. Oh, that's my bad. Let's refresh that again. Okay, perfect. There we go. Now let's try sending this in and test this out if it works. Okay, so let's check our Airtable for collaborator invite. All right, there we go. It's pulled in. Client is Onnoisen Gupta. Project is from Wellness Wave, Design and Development. All right, perfect. It's working beautifully. So yeah, that brings us to the first part. Wrap to the first part of the dashboard build. So yeah, if you have any questions, please leave a comment and I will catch you on the next one.